What is going on, everybody? In this video, I'm going to share with you the most important metrics that you want to be looking in your inside sales funnel and overall funnel that works based on a low ticket front end product and a high ticket back end product that, for the most part, utilizes an inside sales team, people on the phone, to convert on the higher ticket items. These are the metrics that I look every single day. These are the metrics that I look to first automate in the businesses that I work with. So, without further ado, let's get to it. But to begin, basically, what we've been able to build is we've been able to scale a few brands to $100 million. One of those we've scaled to $100 million in 2 years, and I attribute a lot of the success to this scalable selling system. The scalable selling system is basically the mechanisms that allowed us to scale in a systematic way. The name says it all. And that's what we've built. That's what we help clients build. We help everybody that's already generating a good amount of leads. It's already making money. We're not helping them figure out their offer or start generating leads, but we're helping them get these leads that they're generating and convert them into high paying customers. And to show you an example here, this is just some of the results we've been able to generate. These are monthly results. As you can see, 5.3 million, 6.2 million. This is the net cash collected that we've been able to build. This is also, we've been able to scale this client back in the day to 1.1 mil with 123,000 on ads. I think that's pretty good. These are overall funnel metrics. And the core concept is that most teams, they cannot scale because they don't have AI, right? Everything it's AI these days. They cannot scale because they don't have AI or whatever trendy bullshit it's out there. They can't scale because they don't focus on these fundamentals. They need the automation and technology to become more profitable, more productive, and more personalized in their approach with their clients. And they need the competent people and smart processes. You need smart people to execute on the activities that your business require, but it can be the smartest person. If you don't have built a good process or you don't have a set of processes that would allow that person to execute at their full potential, guess what? They're not going to execute at their full potential. And you're always going to be wondering, why does anyone can do it like I can, right? So it's because you don't have good processes. Also, you lack systems, meaning everything it's like freestyle. There's no set of there's no cadence of triggers, processes, outcomes that happen in the business to generate an output that it's been commonly agreed on, such as a goal, for example. And everything it's manual and slow. So that's pretty much the equation for business growth that I've been able to come up with. And obviously, your growth, it's tied to your total addressable market because, you can only grow so much as your market allows it, right? You can be the best person to execute this and grow a newspaper, but newspapers aren't necessarily with an increasing TAM. So even if you double your business every year, you may even reduce the actual outputs, the actual money that you're generating because the total addressable market is actually shrinking. So keep that in mind as well. Now, these metrics over here, they're right here. And I'm going to share with you. Our metrics that I look every day are the metrics that are the most important to grow your business because most people make the mistake of just looking at one to two metrics, right? They look at how much they've spent on ads, how much money they made, what's their ROAS. Nothing wrong with that, right? But the fact that you're not looking at all the other metrics that your business it's already generating, but you're not analyzing and optimizing is pretty much not allowing you to look at the basics, right? How much you've spent and how much you've generated. and see that number increasing systematically. So let's say if you're spending $100,000 a month on ads and you're generating 400,000, if you triple the amount you're spending on ads, you're not going to triple the amount you're generating on cash collected, mostly because you need to analyze the other stages of the funnel, the other metrics that would allow you to even maybe spend 300,000 and make 2 million, right? Because you have an optimized funnel, right? It's not just a matter of doing A/B tests, you know. It's a matter of like looking at the funnel as a whole, building workflows to optimize each stage of the funnel and make sure that when you look at the actual sales system here, there's no like linear process to the customer journey, right? Every customer these days, if you're tracking their first click attribution all the way to the last click attribution, there's at least like 14, 15 engagements with the brand, right? They click on a retargeting ad, they click on a YouTube video, then they click on your newsletter, then they download a lead magnet, then they watch your VSL, they go to your webinar, your workshop, and then, they book a call and they buy. So all these things, they play a role, right, in the overall success of your business. So when we think about optimizing, we're not just thinking about split tests or A/B tests. So without further ado, let's reveal the money. Let's see what's behind. This is a gold bar, so let's see what's behind the gold bar, right? And I'll start from top to bottom. So first metric I always look at is the opt-in rate. The opt-in rate is one of the metrics that is most important that people often take it for granted, because some people even say like you don't even need an opt-in. For the people that don't need an opt-in, or they say that it's not needed, it's mostly because they don't have anything on their back end. So from their perspective, I kind of agree, right? If you don't have any email marketing setup, any SMS, any appointment setters, any lead magnets that would allow the person to get more familiarity with your brand. Obviously, like if you skip the opt-in rate, the opt-in page, you're technically going to generate cheaper conversions on the form. But if you compare how many people you could have converted in your backend versus just direct marketing, like just going straight to the ads, in the long haul, you're definitely going to be losing money, and you're actually missing out on one of the biggest assets that your brand has, which is your email list, right? So opt-in rates can be optimized by looking at the what's like the heat map on the page, right? What are the assets that you have above the fold? Like you want to definitely add your CTA above the fold to make sure that the person that it's landing on that page doesn't have to scroll down in order to see that, they can already click on a button, they can already submit their application, whatever. Especially on mobile, it has to be focused on mobile optimization. And the more you optimize, here's the thing about top funnel metrics. The more you optimize the opt-in rate, all the other metrics are going to be optimized, because if you have more people coming in at the top of the funnel and they are converting, even if the other metrics stay constant for the most part, you're going to increase the conversions that you have. So opt-in rate, it's one of those metrics that I look at every single day and see if it's increasing, decreasing, what is happening. Now I'm trying to pull the other one here. Let's go. So here is the other one that I believe it's very important, which is the front end to form conversion rate. So basically, what I mean by this is, let's say for example, you can either have two types of funnels. The first one that I'm going to share, I think it's one that it's getting deprecated with time because of the current economic scenario and the actual lack of trust most people have on influencers and businesses these days compared to like 4 or 5 years ago. So the first one, it's, let's say for example, you're just running ads, the person opts in, fill out a form, book a call, and then buy like a $5,000 product. You can kind of scale with this, you know. Um, these days, but you're not going to be able to scale to like 5 million, 6 million a month, right? Mostly because not everybody can spend $5,000 and they haven't become a customer, so they haven't experienced value. And also, credit card debt is through the roof. So people want to give it a test, give it a try on specific brands before they committing to a higher price, right? It's all a matter of trust. So this funnel, I think it's getting deprecated with time. It's not working as well as it used to, like 4 or 5 years ago. Strategy sessions and all those quote unquote sales calls disguised as other names. People already know it's a sales call, so it's like pretending nothing has changed. It's kind of like ignorant, from the standpoint of a business. So I like to look also at the front end to form conversion rate, being, how many front end customers have we been able to generate, and how many of these customers we've generated have submitted their application for high ticket. This is an important metric that you want to look for because it tells you how well your conversion workflows are working, right? It's not a metric that it's an aggregated metric in the way of, there isn't like a linear path, because if you have an onboarding call on the front end, or, a community or email marketing, retargeting ads, SMS, and all that stuff, all of these will contribute for the conversion on the form, right? And using like multi-attribution platforms like Hyros or Wicked Reports, for example, you could analyze which of those are making the highest impact on the conversion. So this is the other metric that I look at every day, and I think every business owner should look at every day, especially if they have like an inside sales team selling high ticket on their back end. And the other metric, it's the actual form conversion rate. This is so important because if you look again, it's the same thought process of the opt-in rates, right? The more people submit your form, even if your booking rates stay the same, the more bookings you'll get, right? So if there's a video I posted that talks about the sensitivity analysis and how sometimes focusing on increasing these metrics over here leads to a higher outcome on the cash collected than actually just focusing on the close rates. Because whether we like it or not, most people are saying like, oh, I can close at like 40, 50%, all this bullshit. Like, you can close at 30, 40%, whatever you want to say it. But if you're closing at this rate, you're also not qualifying all the leads to book a call, right? Yeah, you're kind of cherry picking the leads by pre-qualifying them on the form. Whereas if your close rate, maybe it's at 20, 25%, and you have a segmentation in place on your form that would allow the best quote unquote cherry picked customers to close with, like, to jump on the call with the best closers, you will maintain that percentage. But also you could ramp up a lot more closers if you just had all those quote unquote unqualified leads going on a call and potentially converting, right? They won't have the highest conversion rate, but if you were to choose between having like a lower conversion rate on a segment that you haven't been selling for versus having a higher conversion rate only on a qualified segment versus both, I would choose both because it's equals to more money, right? So that is also important on the form conversion rate. Like, how are you qualifying the leads make a big difference. And the other metric, it's the booking rate. Booking rate, I look at every single day because it tells me so much, like, about the business. If the booking rate is high, if the booking rate is low, it can tell me about the capacity of the business, meaning like how many available slots a closer has versus the number of slots that have been occupied, right? So if the closer has 10 slots in a day, 8 slots has been occupied, he has 80% capacity. What do you think is going to happen to the calendar? Not many people will book because there ain't many available slots. So there is a correlation between your closer's capacity and the booking rate and the calendar. So if the booking rate is going, it's lowering, and you haven't changed anything, it's always important to check the capacity on the calendar to make sure is at least between 60 to 70%, because you also don't want to leave at 50% and your closers don't have enough calls and they get pissed and they don't perform. So that's very important on the booking rate. And then the cancellation rate, I always like to divide the cancellation rate between the cancel calls by the closer versus the customer, because at least on the tool we use, we can pull this data and it allow us to see out of the cancellation rates, how many are actually being canceled by the closer versus the customer. If the customer is canceling, like you can't really do a lot. Things happen. The world doesn't revolve around your business and the calls you have. I'm sorry to say that, but most people think like their freaking call is the most important thing after sliced bread, but it's not. You have to convince the person that they need that call. And sometimes if they cancel, it's not me doesn't mean that they're not convinced. It means that life happens. But when the user cancels, it can mean a few things, right? Such as the closer it's pre-qualifying the customer too much, or the closer hasn't been setting up their schedule correctly and they got calls and times that they didn't want to. So it's very important to try to break down. Not all tools provide this data, but at least OneSub is the tool that we use. It does provide the data, so it's something that I always look at. And in fact, I have notifications that go out if, let's say, for example, in a given week, the closer has a cancellation rate above 20% after canceling 10 calls, right? Because you also don't want to trigger any data specific notification that is like a conversion rate mechanism without adding a condition on the number of conversions. Otherwise, you're going to be triggering when you have like two calls. So that's cancellation rate. And the other metric, show up rate. Obviously, it's very important to know what is the show up rate. The funny thing is that 99% of businesses don't even know how to calculate their show up rate. I'm being serious, because I've worked with many people, and for the most part, the way they calculate their show up rates is the total number of people that, show up for the call divided by the total number of people that booked minus the total number of people that canceled, which, it's gonna give you somewhat of a show up rate. But what you want to, there's a specific modification that you want to do on these show up rates, which is you want to calculate the show up rate only based on today's data. So your show up rate can't just pull like all calls scheduled or all calls completed or all calls canceled. You can only pull the calls completed that the start time was today divided by the bookings that the start time was today minus the cancellations that the call start time was today. That way you're going to actually get an accurate view of your show up rates. Otherwise, if let's say on Sundays you have a lot of bookings and then on Mondays you have a lot of shows and not as many bookings, you may look at your funnel and see metrics differently than what they're actually representing, just because of the way that you're calculating the formulas, right? So show up rate, I always look at it correctly to make sure we're improving it. And then the other metrics, close rate. Obviously, I don't really want to get into too much detail here. If you have on a funnel like an inside sales team, one specific closer that it's like with a very high close rate and is pretty much receiving the same leads as another closer with a very low close rate, I always like to look at closers and like this funnel in specific, like similar to running ads on Facebook, right? Like you have your audiences, you have your ads, you have your ad sets, and your focus is to get more of the ads and ad sets that are converting best and cut down the underperformers. That's basically what I do with closers as well. But you need to give them some time. I would say like 2 weeks, for you actually see how they perform. But after that, like they're not performing, I typically let them go. Um, and then the other metrics, average order value, basically, what is the average ticket that your sales team is generating? It's very important because the more money you'll make is whenever you can offer the highest amount of payment methods and the widest range of offers, the widest range of prices. So if you're only selling like a straight to 10K offer, I mean, it's great. Wow, you're selling 10K products. Congratulations. But, you know, out of 3 to 4 people per day that wanted to sign up with you and they don't have 10K ready, they do have 5K ready. Um, you can undersell them on a payment plan, or you have like a 5K offer, you have a 2K offer that people can sign up for. A lot of people use financing these days. There is one caveat to financing, like we use it a lot, but it's mostly it's better if you use financing when you have, let's say, lifetime deals, because if your customer is tied into that and your product has a specific validation date, the renewal rates will likely suffer. So you have to calculate if the realization rate on the front end and the lowering in the renewal rates on the back end will compensate for a higher enterprise value on the business. All right. So if you don't do that, that's totally fine. You can still do financing, because what most people want, it's like they just want to convert one customer and then another new customer. I think this will change with time, because people will realize that, the most valuable brands in the world, they actually sell the same customer multiple times instead of selling them like a very pricey item one time. So I think that's something that will change in the overall agency, consultancy, info product, like expert industry, if you will. But I haven't seen a major change yet. But average order value, like that's typically what it means. And then the realization rate, it's basically what I said in terms of like if you have payment plans or not. You want to know what's your realization rate, like how much of that cash that you've sold, it's coming in on the first 7 days of the transaction, and see if there's anything you can do to increase that realization rate. And don't miss out on the payment, because if you have a lot of volume and if you have like 8 to 10 closers and you're not finding a way to track how many of those remaining payments are coming through, you're definitely leaving money on the table. And I say this from experience. We used to have payment plans, and if you like in a team of 10 people, 8 people, we're doing like 800K a month. And if you looked at the people that did the payment plans with mostly like a deposit and that they would collect after 30 days, there was like a 5% of the payments that were never collected, mostly due to like lack of organization, lack of processes, or lack of smart people, right? The closer just freaking doesn't even know how to log in or their Gmail. You can't really expect them to be able to successfully collect all their payments, even if it's like money that they're making. And from your end, like if you hire somebody that is a complete technological idiot, um, you probably didn't do a good job. You probably weren't competent with your leadership role. So that's basically it. Outside the cash collected, which is pretty obviously you want to know how much money you're making. But just looking at this, imagine you're looking at this and then you're looking at, like, let's say, I'll even put here ad spend. Most people, they just look at like this: cash collected, ROAS, and ad spend. Well, you're missing out 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 optimization points. if you were to look at a business that it's optimizing for 12, I think, metrics, and these metrics are correlated to one another, right? You're not dispersing yourself. There's an actual coordinated effort to increase the overall performance of the business versus one business that only looks at ad spend and cash collected and ROAS. Who do you think it's the business that has the highest likelihood of scaling past $1 million a month to $3 million a month, of hiring people that would help create processes that would strengthen the foundation of the business and make it more resilient to any ups and downs, any modifications in the algorithms and things along those lines? I would imagine it's going to be the business that tracks the full funnel metrics and really seek to optimize them systematically after a sensitivity analysis. But if you disagree, that's your problem. I don't really care about your opinion. I actually do. I actually do. If you disagree, tell me why. Because like it doesn't make sense to me. Even though people say like simple skills, X, Y, and Z, yeah, I mean, you want to be simple about your approach, but you also don't want to be simplistic, right? You don't want to like be ignorant about the fact that, Amazon, it's not simple. Apple, it's not simple. It's not like ABC, you know. Facebook, it's not simple. You may think it's simple because they make it look simple, but it's not. Like there's a lot of people involved. There's a lot of processes, there's a lot of systems that have to happen in order to create a massive brand. So the simplicity aspect obviously gets the clicks, gets the sales, but overall, it's like you're running a machine, and sometimes it requires a slight level of complexity to systematize and make it simple. So, with that being said, that's it for this video. If you enjoyed this video, let me know in the comment section. Like the video, subscribe, and I hope you have a great week.